No one expected anything dangerous to happen on the edge of Redfall Colony. Especially not because of a quiet human rancher who rarely spoke and never caused trouble. But the moment Elias Crow noticed the alien woman limping across his land, the balance between humans and aliens on Mars began to shift in ways no sheriff, council, or empire could stop. Elias lived where the colony ended and the red wilderness began. His ranch was carved out of Martian dust with stubborn human effort. Solar fences, water recyclers, and engineered livestock kept him alive far from crowded domes and alien politics. After decades of service-building frontier infrastructure, Elias wanted silence, work, and distance from power struggles. He trusted tools more than people and animals more than governments. That morning, the dust storms were light, just a copper haze drifting across the fields. Elias was repairing a wind stabilizer when the proximity alarm chimed softly. Someone was approaching on foot. That alone was unusual. He looked up and froze. A slender alien woman stood near the outer fence, her posture strained. Her skin shimmered pale violet under the sun, a trait of the Narration species. She wore a service uniform, simple and clean, but torn at the hem. One of her legs dragged slightly behind the other. Elias set his tools down and walked toward her. "You're early," he said, his voice calm but observant. Her eyes widened slightly. "Mr. Crow. I apologize. I tried to arrive on time." She took another step and nearly collapsed. Elias moved fast, catching her before she fell. She was lighter than he expected. Too light. "You're hurt," he said. "It is insignificant," she replied, avoiding his eyes. Elias didn't argue. He supported her silently and guided her inside the habitat dome. The airlock sealed behind them, shutting out the red world. Inside, the clean white light revealed the truth. Her leg was wrapped poorly in a blood-stained bandage. Her breathing was shallow. Elias grabbed a medical scanner from the wall and ran it over her leg. Fractured muscle fibers. Internal bruising. Untreated for days. "This didn't come from a fall," he said. She flinched. Her name was Sarali, assigned by an interspecies labor agency to assist with domestic maintenance twice a week. She cleaned, organized systems, and monitored environmental balance. For 2 years, she had been precise, polite, and silent. Elias never asked questions. He paid fairly. She worked harder than required. Now she sat on his chair, hands folded tightly in her lap. "My bondholder was displeased," she said softly. "I failed to meet expectations." Elias felt something tighten in his chest. "Who did this?" he asked. She hesitated too long. "I am bound by Narration law," she whispered. "I cannot accuse." Elias stood and walked to the storage cabinet. He removed a proper medkit, not the cheap colony issue, but the one built for frontier emergencies. His hands were steady as he cleaned the wound and reset the damaged tissue with precise pressure. She watched him in silence. "You don't work today," he said. "You rest." "I cannot," she replied quickly. "If I miss my duty." "I said you don't work." His tone wasn't loud. It was final. She swallowed. Outside the dome, the wind picked up. Somewhere beyond the ranch, patrol drones buzzed through the sky, enforcing laws written far away by people who never touched dirt. Sarali finally spoke again. "If my bondholder reports me, I will be reclaimed." Elias looked at her. "Reclaimed how?" Her eyes shimmered. "Public discipline. Reassignment. Memory compliance if necessary." That word hit him hard. Memory. Elias walked to the window and stared at the red horizon. He had helped terraform this planet. Bled for it. Watched humans and aliens promise cooperation. He had believed it. Once. "How many like you?" he asked quietly. She didn't understand at first. "Like me." "How many are hurt and told to stay silent?" Her answer was barely audible. "Many." Elias turned back to her. "Not here," he said. She looked confused. "Not on my land. Not in my house." She tried to stand again and winced. Elias stopped her gently. "You stay," he said. I'll handle the rest. What do you intend to do? She asked, fear creeping into her voice. Elias picked up his old datapad. The one he never used anymore. The one loaded with obsolete access codes, engineering overrides, and forgotten permissions from the early days of the colony. I intend, he said calmly, to ask questions no one wants answered. Outside, a patrol drone slowed as it passed the ranch perimeter. Its sensors paused longer than usual. Somewhere in the colony network, Elias Crow's name resurfaced. And that was the moment everything began to change. The patrol drone did not stop that day, but it marked the ranch. Elias knew the sound pattern well enough to hear the hesitation in its engines. Someone, or something, was now paying attention. Sareli slept for nearly half a cycle. Elias stayed awake. He reinforced the perimeter, rerouted power through older human-only channels, and activated shielding protocols that most colonists had forgotten even existed. He did not do it in panic. He did it with the calm focus of someone who had prepared for hard days long before they arrived. When Sareli woke, she found warm nutrient broth beside her and the pain in her leg reduced to a dull ache. Elias had stabilized it properly. Better than any agency clinic would have. You should not risk yourself for me, she said quietly. Elias adjusted the chair across from her and sat down. I didn't. She looked at him, confused. I'm risking myself for the truth, he said. You're just the reason it finally matters. She hesitated, then spoke. My bondholder's name is Varek. He is respected among the Nirel. He trades labor permits and resource access. Humans trust him because he smiles and speaks softly. Elias nodded. He had seen that kind before. He controls many service workers, she continued. Most are bonded. Most are afraid. Does the sheriff know? Elias asked. Yes, she said. But they say it is cultural. Elias exhaled slowly. That evening, a ground vehicle arrived unannounced. 2 alien deputies stepped out, tall and armored, their movements stiff with authority. One was Nirel. The other belonged to a species Elias didn't recognize, thick-skinned with glowing eyes. Elias Crow, the Nirel deputy said. You are harboring bonded property without authorization. Elias stepped outside, shutting the door behind him. She's injured, he replied. She stays until she heals. That is not your decision, the deputy said. Bond law supersedes human preference. Elias smiled faintly. It wasn't a friendly smile. Bond law doesn't apply on my land, he said. Human charter does. The second deputy shifted. This sector is under colonial jurisdiction. Elias raised his wrist and projected a faded but valid hologram. Frontier clause. Filed 18 years ago. Never revoked. The deputies hesitated. Inside the dome, Sareli listened, heart racing. You are interfering with interspecies stability, the Nirel deputy said carefully. No, Elias replied. I'm interfering with abuse. A long silence followed. We will return, the deputy said finally. With a warrant. Elias nodded. Bring one. When the vehicle left, Sareli covered her face with trembling hands. They will take me, she whispered. And punish you. Elias placed a blanket around her shoulders. They'll try. That night, Elias accessed old colony archives. Early settlement records. Human-only reports buried under layers of diplomatic rewriting. Patterns emerged quickly. Injuries dismissed. Disappearances labeled voluntary. Complaints erased. He sent packets of data through decentralized channels. Not to officials. To people. By morning, messages started coming in. Dock workers. Med techs. Former deputies. Humans and aliens alike. They all said the same thing. We saw it too. By midday, the sheriff arrived in person. Sheriff Halvorsen was human, grey-haired, and tired in a way only long compromise could create. He stood in Elias's doorway, hands open. You're stirring something dangerous, Halvorsen said. Elias poured coffee and handed him a cup. Something's been dangerous for a long time. Halvorsen glanced toward Sareli, resting on the couch. The council will side with Bond law. They already did, Elias said. That's the problem. Halvorsen lowered his voice. If you push this, they'll make an example of her. Elias leaned forward. Then I'll make one of them. The sheriff studied him carefully. You're serious? Yes. Halvorsen sighed. Damn it, Crow. You were supposed to be one of the quiet ones. I was, Elias replied. Until I wasn't. The sheriff stood. I can delay enforcement. Not stop it. That's enough, Elias said. When Halvorsen left, Sareli looked at Elias with something new in her eyes. Not fear. Not gratitude. Hope. What happens now? She asked. Elias looked at the horizon, where dust clouds gathered like witnesses. Now, he said, we stop pretending this is normal. That evening, a broadcast leaked onto the colony network. Images. Testimonies. Medical scans. Names. The story spread faster than the authorities could suppress it. Service workers stopped reporting for duty. Dock operations slowed. Alien families began asking questions their leaders had avoided for generations. And somewhere deep in the administrative towers, Varric realized his silence was no longer protecting him. He sent his own message. A formal demand. Sareli was to be returned immediately. Elias read it once, then deleted it. He stepped outside as the sun dipped below the red sky, casting long shadows across his land. For the first time in years, he activated the ranch's full defense grid. Not because he wanted a fight, but because he knew one was coming. And this time, humanity would not look away. By the next cycle, Redfall Colony no longer felt calm. Ships delayed docking. Market channels flickered with arguments. Public feeds filled with clipped videos and whispered testimonies. What had started as one injured service worker on a forgotten ranch had become a question no one could ignore anymore. Who was the law really protecting? Elias stood on the ranch balcony, watching dust curl across the plains. His sensors showed movement in the distance. Not patrol drones this time. People. Small vehicles. Some on foot. Humans. Aliens. All heading toward his land. Sareli stood behind him, wrapped in a heavy jacket. Her leg was healing, but she still leaned on the railing for support. They are coming because of me, she said softly. They're coming because they're tired, Elias replied. The first to arrive were humans from the lower sectors. Mechanics. Farmers. Cargo handlers. People who lived close to the ground and far from politics. They kept their distance at first, unsure if they were welcome. Elias walked down to meet them. You don't owe me anything, he said. If you're here to watch, that's fine. A woman stepped forward. Her hands were stained with engine grease. We're not here to watch. Others nodded. Then came the aliens. Not officials. Workers. Small traders. Even a few Nirel, their crests lowered in shame rather than pride. They stood apart at first, uncertain, until Sareli stepped forward. She did not speak loudly. She did not accuse. She simply removed her jacket. The scars were visible now. Old ones. New ones. Patterns that told a story no translation software could soften. A low murmur passed through the crowd. That was when the sheriff's convoy appeared. 6 vehicles. Armed deputies. Riot suppression gear. Sheriff Halvorsen exited slowly, his expression grim. This has gone too far, he said. Elias stepped forward. It hasn't gone far enough. Behind Halvorsen, Varric emerged from a polished transport. He wore ceremonial markings and an expression of injured dignity. My bonded has been stolen, Varric declared. This human is inciting unrest. Sareli's hands trembled, but she did not step back. She is not an object, Elias said. She's a person. Varric's eyes hardened. Your species does not decide that. That sentence broke something. Not in Elias. In the crowd. A dock worker shouted first. Then another voice. Then 10. Stories spilled out. Abuse. Threats. Contracts signed under pressure. Families broken quietly so trade would continue smoothly. Deputies shifted nervously. Halvorsen raised his hands. Everyone calmed down. Elias activated a projector. Medical records appeared. Financial transfers. Missing worker reports cross-linked across species lines. Varek's name glowed at the center of it all. You trafficked people, Elias said. Across legal definitions and moral ones. Varek laughed sharply. Human law cannot touch me. That's true, Elias replied. So we didn't use human law. He tapped the control. A second symbol appeared. Old. Forgotten. The Founders' Accord. Signed when humans first arrived, desperate and weak, bargaining survival with promise. One clause had been ignored for decades. Mutual sentience protection. Any being capable of self-awareness, emotion, and consent was protected. Bond laws were only valid if consent could be withdrawn. Silence followed. Halvorsen stared at the document. This was never repealed. Just buried, Elias said. Varek's confidence faltered. This is irrelevant. A Nirel elder stepped forward from the crowd. Her voice carried authority that did not rely on titles. It is not irrelevant, she said. It is inconvenient. She turned to Sareli. Do you withdraw consent? Sareli's voice shook, but it did not break. Yes. The elder nodded. Then the bond is void. Varek shouted, but it was drowned out by noise. Deputies received new orders through their comms. Some hesitated. Some obeyed instantly. Halvorsen looked at Elias. You planned this. Elias shook his head. No. I just didn't stop it. Varek was restrained. Not violently. Firmly. By deputies from 3 species. The crowd did not cheer. They watched. Because this was bigger than revenge. Later, as vehicles departed and the dust settled, Sareli sat beside Elias on the steps. I am afraid, she admitted. So am I, Elias said. But for the first time, she continued, I am afraid of the future, not the present. Elias smiled faintly. Across the colony, councils scrambled. News spread beyond Mars. Other worlds watched humans challenge systems they once feared. Not with armies, but with memory, stubbornness, and refusal. And humanity, once again, reminded the galaxy of something simple. Quiet does not mean weak. The response did not come quietly. It never does when power is challenged. Within 2 cycles of Varek's arrest, Redfall Colony was no longer just a local problem. Signals bounced off satellites. Councils on other worlds issued statements filled with calm words and sharp warnings. Trade guilds whispered about instability. Security fleets adjusted their routes. And somewhere far beyond Mars, species who had never feared humans before began to reassess them. Elias Crow woke before dawn. Old habit. The kind that never leaves you once the frontier teaches you that survival starts early. The ranch was quiet, but the silence felt different now. Heavy. Expectant. Sareli stood by the window when he entered the common room. They are debating us, she said. Across the network. Good, Elias replied. Means they can't ignore us. She turned. They are angry. Elias poured coffee. That means we're doing it right. By midday, the official notice arrived. A multi-species tribunal was being formed. Emergency authority. Their demand was simple. Sareli was to be transferred into protective custody. Elias read the message twice. No, he said. Sareli stiffened. Elias, they will come by force. Let them, he replied calmly. The sheriff arrived again, alone this time. They're sending observers, Halvorsen said. Military-grade peacekeepers. Not soldiers. But close enough. Elias nodded. Figures. You're putting yourself between governments, Halvorsen added. People don't survive that. Elias looked out toward the fields. His cattle grazed calmly, unaware of politics, borders, or fear. People survive worse every day, he said. That afternoon, the first observer ship descended. Sleek. Silent. Alien symbols shimmered across its hull. Representatives disembarked, tall and composed, surrounded by drones recording everything. They expected chaos. They found a gathering. Humans and aliens stood together near the ranch. Not shouting. Not armed. Just present. Workers held data slates. Families held hands. Elders watched with old eyes that had seen cycles of silence before. Sareli stepped forward. Her voice carried across the open land. I was told my pain was cultural, she said. I was told silence was honorable. I was told suffering kept peace. She paused, steadying herself. I do not believe that anymore. The observers exchanged glances. Elias activated the broadcast. Testimonies followed. Not dramatic. Not exaggerated. Simple truth spoken by many mouths. Patterns emerged too clear to deny. The observers tried to interrupt. Legal frameworks. Jurisdiction disputes. Protocol arguments. Elias listened patiently. Then he spoke. You keep asking who has authority, he said. That's the wrong question. They turned to him. The question is who has responsibility. A murmur passed through the crowd. You came here because one rancher didn't follow the rules, Elias continued. But those rules were already broken. Quietly. Repeatedly. By systems that benefited from looking away. One of the observers responded sharply. You are destabilizing interstellar order. Elias nodded. Yes. That word hit harder than any protest. Order that survives on fear deserves to be unstable, he added. The broadcast cut suddenly. Across the colony network, silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. Messages of support flooded in. From mining worlds. Agricultural outposts. Service stations. Places that never mattered until everything depended on them. Alien workers withdrew labor. Humans refused to ship goods. Small acts. Everywhere. The tribunal reconvened within hours. This time, their tone had changed. Varek's charges expanded. Bond laws were suspended pending review. Temporary protections were granted to service workers across multiple systems. It was not justice. But it was movement. That night, Elias sat outside, staring at the stars. Sareli joined him, moving carefully but steadily now. You didn't save me alone, she said. No, Elias agreed. You spoke. She smiled faintly. Humans are strange. We get that a lot. Silence settled between them, comfortable now. Far away, leaders argued. Empires recalculated. History adjusted its path slightly. Not because of fleets. Not because of war. But because one quiet human refused to stay quiet. And the galaxy noticed. The tribunal's decision echoed across the system, but decisions on paper never end a story. They only change its direction. Redfall Colony did not return to normal. It became something new. In the weeks that followed, bond contracts were suspended across multiple worlds. Investigations opened. Councils argued. Some species resisted fiercely, calling it human interference. Others quietly began rewriting their laws before they were forced to. And at the center of it all was a place no one expected to matter. A ranch at the edge of Mars. Elias Crow did not give speeches after that. He did not attend councils or accept interviews. When messages arrived asking him to represent humanity in negotiations, he declined every one. I'm not a leader, he told the sheriff. I'm a reminder. Sareli chose to stay on the ranch, not as a bonded worker, but as a free citizen. She signed a new contract written in plain language, one that either of them could end at any time. It mattered to her more than any legal victory. Healing took time. Not just her leg, but the part of her that had learned to expect pain as payment for peace. Some nights she woke from dreams where silence was safer than truth. Elias never asked. He simply made tea and sat nearby, present without pressure. Across the colony, others followed her example. Workers began demanding contracts they could leave. Families asked questions they had never dared to speak. Alien youths accessed human history archives and discovered something unsettling. Humans had been here before. On Earth. On Luna. On forgotten frontier stations. Oppression wearing the mask of order. And humans had never handled it quietly. A delegation arrived one morning without warning. Not officials. Elders. Representatives from 6 species stood before Elias's door. No guards. No drones. They bowed. "We misjudged your kind," one of them said. Elias leaned against the doorway. "You're not the first." "You fight without conquest," another added. "You disrupt without domination." Elias shrugged. "We're bad at accepting broken systems." The eldest spoke last. "What do you want?" Elias thought for a long moment. "I want you to remember," he said. "Not this ranch. Not my name. Remember that silence is a choice. And humans notice when it's used as a weapon." The elders left without ceremony. Months passed. Trade resumed, slower but fairer. New charters were signed. Not perfect. Never perfect. But better than before. And somewhere beyond Mars, a young alien worker stood up to a superior and said no for the first time. Because they had heard a story. Not about a hero. But about a quiet human who refused to look away. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the red plains, Sareli stood beside Elias at the fence. "I used to believe strength was endurance," she said. "Now I think it is memory." Elias nodded. "That's one of our worst traits." She smiled. "Worst?" "We remember injustice," he said. "And we don't stop bringing it up." The wind carried Martian dust across the fields. The cattle shifted. The stars burned quietly overhead. The galaxy moved on. But it did not forget. Because humanity never lets it. And somewhere, in places powerful beings hoped would stay silent, people remembered the lesson Mars had taught them. Humans do not need to rule the stars. They only need to stand up in the dark and say, "This ends here."